We are ready. Welcome into the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Andy Olson, Derek Piper with you ahead of this Big Ten matchup here in Evanston, Illinois. Derek, we saw this one earlier this season already, the second rematch game the Illini have played in a row at this point. The exception, though, last time these two teams played, Terrence Shannon Jr. was not in the squad. He's back second game in a row after coming off a suspension, Derek. And Northwestern has some pretty good wins on their home court this season. Number one, Purdue was taken down here at Welsh Ryan Arena, but they also have a loss to Chicago State here on this court. We don't know what Northwestern team you're going to get every night, it feels like.
Are they not Chicago's Big Ten team? Chicago State beat them?
That's a good question.
Should we offer that up?
I don't know.
I don't know. But
you can turn around and
I think they're going to wear the Chicago, what do you call those? Chicago, like, tribute, alternate.
The Chicago city,
unis.
like city jerseys. You call them like an MLB City Connect kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
it's a big game for both squads. I mean, Northwestern obviously trying to avenge the 30-point loss that they had in Champaign. Pretty embarrassing defeat for them. And a tall task to face this Illini squad now with a first-team All-American caliber player. Northwestern also coming off a loss at Northwestern at Nebraska over the weekend. So they're really a bubble team at this point. I know that right now Joe Lunardi has them in as a 10 seed, but some work to do in terms of bolstering their resume. Of course, this would be a huge one, beating a top 10 team on their home floor. But like you said, not only this year, but you look back last year as well, they beat a top-ranked Purdue squad on this court this season and last season. Yeah. They also beat Trace Jackson-Davis in Indiana last year, and they're a top 15 squad on this court as well. So they've been a different team at home. I think some Illini fans out there might say, okay, 30-point win, Shannon's back. They should cruise in this one, that being the Illini.
I don't know if that's the case.
I would say not so fast, but we'll break it down in terms of the matchup. I do think that there's some things that Illinois, from a matchup standpoint, present problems with their size against Northwestern, a smaller team. But going on the road is tough in the Big Ten, as you see on a nightly basis. Wisconsin barely surviving last night at Minnesota. Yeah. So I think it's going to be obviously a dogfight on the court, and I think also very interesting off the court, the way that Shannon is received in his first game on the road since having that suspension lifted.
Yeah, let's dive into that, I think, immediately. To me, that's the first thing that is top of mind tonight in Welsh Ryan Arena. We saw the reception that Shannon got after his suspension at the State Farm Center. It's going to be a 180 in the opposite direction, I feel like, in a visiting locker room for him tonight at Welsh Ryan Arena, especially the in-state rivalry factor of this all, too.
Yeah, for sure. I know you will get a nice turnout for Illini fans. They always show out here.
It's sold out tonight, by the way.
Yeah, I was looking on SeatGeek, not that I need a ticket or anything, but $150 is the cheapest one currently available. So the steep price is a good ticket to have, obviously. And if you're trying to get in the arena, you got to pay a little bit of a pretty penny. But no doubt, with Illinois fans wanting to see their top 10 Illini and then Northwestern, of course, coming off an NCAA tournament berth last year, a team that has made this a fun place for them. Like it's a fun environment. I give credit to the student section for what they've turned this place into. And then just in general, Boo Booey and whatnot, it's a pretty good team. But to your point, like I think going against a Big Ten opposing crowd and opposing student section, expected to be pretty raucous, number one, but also pretty adversarial and probably going to hear some things you don't want to hear if you're Terrence Shannon and the Illini, which they're going to have a target on their back no matter what arena they walk into the rest of the season, because it's a very pressing topic in college basketball right now. A guy that was arrested on rape allegations still has a criminal case to play out. And a lot of people, if you're not inside that Illini bubble, probably very much disagree or are highly criticizing the fact that Illinois has him back on the court. Yes, a big part of that is a federal judge ruling on that and obviously getting him a preliminary injunction. But you're going to have – this is quite a unique situation that you can't really compare it to anything else. So as we kind of forecast and wonder about what Illinois and Terrence in particular are going to face on the road going forward, tonight's going to give us a nice preview of that. And on the note of nice, it's probably going to be not so nice.
How much do you think Brad Underwood and company are focusing on telling their guys that they need to be extra cautious going into these road environments? We've seen Coleman Hawkins tweet about it recently about what they hear out on the court. It's never good. I'm on the side of you shouldn't be yelling certain types of things at people, but you know it is going to happen if you're Illinois, especially with everything you just mentioned and described. How much do you think that coaching staff is like, guys, we need to make sure best behavior with the refs, and you can't let them get under your skin type of stuff?
I think you have to do it. I know that Joey Wagner asked Brad yesterday about addressing it with the team, and Brad kind of downplayed it and said, every road game in the Big Ten is tough, and you're going to face an opposing fan base that is against you and whatnot. But I think he's just trying not to draw extra attention to it on the outside. And the inside, I would imagine that there's extended talks, especially with Terrence, a guy that he's going to hear some stuff that is going to be highly personal and very sensitive in terms of the case that he's currently involved in, the situation that he's currently involved in. So you've seen fan and player interactions go wrong through the years, especially like in the NBA. The Malice in the Palace. You don't want anything like that to happen. So I think you do have to understand, if you're a player, that you might hear some stuff that may really upset you, but you've got to be able to stay locked in, try to keep tunnel vision as far as that goes, but don't let it spill out into an altercation or anything like that. And it is going to be a test for Terrence of how focused he can be. And, it's going to be in terms of this one game sample size, being at the first one on the road, I think it's going to be a lot of attention to Northwestern fan base and students. It's going to be everywhere this team goes. Yeah. So I don't think it's a singular thing at all. It's just going to be the first exposure we have to this, and it's really inevitable. And I think that just the overall disagreement or contention or whatever of people feeling a certain way about him playing is going to exist. Of course, there is a line regardless of how you feel about Terrence playing or not, and hopefully it doesn't get crossed, and hopefully the players in their sense don't spill it out and understand that they got to still play a game and stay within the lines.
The biggest buzzword that we've heard since last Friday, when it was announced that Terrence Shannon Jr. could play again for the Illini, has been integration and getting him back into the squad, getting him into game shape. Is tonight the night you think that we see him in the starting lineup for the first time since suspension, or is he going to come off the bench again and play, what was it, I think a high 20 amount of minutes?
Yeah, he was in that 27, 28-minute range. I think he would start tonight if I were making the call there. I know Brad, I chatted with him a little bit about my soon-to-be daughter coming here. He didn't ask me what I thought he should do with the starting lineup, but he ended up checking in like 2 minutes into the game against Rutgers. So whether he's in the starting lineup or not, he's going to play starters quality minutes in terms of the volume and probably be in there very, very early. So in that sense, I would say, why not just put him out in the starting lineup? It's not like you're maybe going to avoid him from a certain reaction. Like, yeah, his name gets called over the starting lineup, he's going to get booed, and you're going to hear a lot, but he will throughout the 40 minutes anyway. So I would start him if I was Brad. Not that the starting lineup with Luke Goody in his place essentially hasn't been playing pretty well, which they have, but I think a fast start on the road is going to be important. Now, you could weigh that one of two ways. Like, Terrence was fairly rusty against Rutgers, especially with his jump shot. Now, got it going there in the second half, going to the basket and being able to score. But also on the flip side, initially, as soon as he checked in, Illinois got out and was really pressing in transition and getting it to Coleman Hawkins on back-to-back dunks. So knowing that Northwestern's going to come out with a lot of intensity, knowing that you're trying to corral Boo Buie, not let their guards get going, I'd want Terrence out there knowing his defensive prowess, but obviously what he can do at the offensive end as well.
Yeah, well, just have to wait and see what it's going to be. It should be coming down soon, that decision. As far as what you saw from him in his first game back, second on the team in scoring, it was Justin Harmon who led the team in scoring off the bench in that win over Rutgers. And we've seen some things now, Rutgers twice on this schedule. We went out to Piscataway, and then we saw them when they came back to the State Farm Center. I don't think Rutgers is wooing too many people this season, but Northwestern is having one of their better seasons of recent years. And the way that Illinois was able to beat them at the State Farm Center earlier this year, certainly surprising considering Shannon not in that game. With him back, like you said at the very top of the show, it may not be as easy as just you insert Shannon. It's going to be an even bigger win. As far as what you saw in that game and how useful he can still be as he's still getting up to game speed in this one, are you impressed with where he's at after 6 games out, 3.5 weeks without the team, or we to see full strength Terrence Shannon tonight?
We might. I think in terms of getting in a full rhythm, probably I wouldn't say shocked, obviously, but it would be a little bit of a surprise. Now, I will offer up Northwestern, known as one of the better, if not one of the very best defensive teams in the Big Ten last year. This year, in league play, they're dead last in terms of defensive efficiency and what they've done so far against the conference. So they're struggling at that end of the court. They don't have a good matchup for Terrence in terms of like size and athleticism, in terms of a wing that can really check him. So could he have a big night? Absolutely. I think still it wouldn't be a surprise if he's still kind of just getting used to, number one, acclimating back with the team, I don't know about the game shape too much. I mean, this is a high-level athlete, 23 years old, and I know that Brad said he was a little tired after the first surge the other day against Rutgers, but I think he'll be fine as far as that goes. I just think handling the emotions and what he's about to face tonight, that could be something that he's going to have to deal with. But I think for the most part, yeah, defensively, you know that you want to be able to limit Boo Buie, Ty Berry. That was something that Illinois, for the most part, did a pretty good job of. Now, without Terrence, Buie had 20 points in that game, but no assists. The only time he hasn't had an assist at another point this season. So making things tough on Berry in terms of his catch and shoot opportunities, a guy that can really shoot it. Buie off the dribble to be able to penetrate the defense. He's got a great floater game, can get to the rim. I think you'll see a mix of Ty Rodgers, Terrence Shannon, and probably Justin Harmon as well. So Terrence is definitely going to be an asset for this team, no doubt, tonight. Will he be peak Terrence Shannon? I don't know about that. We'll see.
We will have to wait and see. I think we know it's going to happen at some point.
Of course.
It's just a mystery of how many games it's going to take until he gets up to that point. Just speaking of what Illinois was struggling with against the Scarlet Knights, free throws, it seems like they reverted back to what they had been earlier this season. Missed a lot of them outside of Marcus Damas. He was still his usual 90% from the free throw line, but struggling from three as well. 3 for, I think it was 17 in the first half, 3 for 14 in the second. That's not going to do it in Big Ten play. Is that an area that's of necessary improvement tonight to take a win?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that if I'm Northwestern, I'm trying to scheme up a game plan, which they have some tough decisions to make when you look at the way that Illinois attacked them. The last meeting earlier this month with the booty ball and them having some smaller matchups. So they sent a lot of double teams, which left open kick-out threes, cuts to the basket. I think that when I go back to the game in Evanston last year, now obviously a different Illinois team, especially one at that time that was not playing well at all, but kind of the point as you look at the way they defended Shannon, they really clogged the lane. They collapsed on his drives. They dared Illinois to kick it out and beat them from three. If I'm Chris Collins and this staff, if I am going to still double booty ball, I'm going to really try to cheat on those cuts and not let those Quincy Guerrier catch one 3 feet from the rim and be able to go up. I'm going to make him make that skip pass, then knock down the three. Because you look at the last 3 games for Illinois, not only in the Rutgers game, but over the last 3 games, about 26, 27% from beyond the arc. Now, is this team capable? We've seen them have some really hot nights from 3, namely one of those examples being against Northwestern. They hit double-digit threes at a high clip, above 50%. But if I'm Northwestern, I want Illinois to make those perimeter shots rather than getting size advantages inside or leading to cuts to the basket, those front of the rim opportunities. That's something that on the road, it's usually harder to get in a groove with your shot. So that's something that I would look for tonight. If Illinois is not making those perimeter shots, it could be a lot tougher to just get what you want offensively.
Yeah, Coleman Hawkins is someone that we saw take a big step up in those games without Terrence Shannon. And when we look at the games that Illinois won without him, 4-2 in that 6-game stretch, it was Hawkins who was stepping up. Marcus Damas who was stepping up. Marcus, like I said, hit his free throws the other night against Rutgers, but a bit of a slower game for him. We've seen him step up in these, we've said it all year, these kind of big games. Going on the road, I think, against an in-state rival would qualify as one of those big games. And you have to imagine after the last game earlier this month in Champaign that he's also, besides Terrence Shannon, Coleman Hawkins, Marcus is going to be one of the guys that they are scheming against as well.
No doubt, yeah. And they look, the fact that he put 32 points in the box score against them, 12 for 16 from the field, was hyper efficient, also had 6 assists. So he was a problem for them in the booty ball action and just being able to get inside and hit that pull-up jumper that he's really good at. And I think if I'm Northwestern, trying to get Brooks Barnheiser on him as much as they possibly can. Really, you look at their starting lineup, is a 6'6", 215-pound forward that kind of matches up like size-wise. They bring Nick Martinelli off the bench, 6'7", 200 pounds. Trying to get those type of guys on Marcus as much as possible and avoid the booty ball against a Boo Buie, against a Ty Berry, some of those smaller guards that Marcus can take advantage of. So the way that they attack Marcus is going to be very interesting. If they can avoid having to double team him, then of course it's easier to cover the rest of Illinois' attack. Like I mentioned, Quincy cutting, kickouts to Terrence, kickouts to Luke Goody. But they've got to do a better job on Marcus than they did the last time out. Coleman's is a good point as well. I'm going to be very interested. One thing that Northwestern didn't do that we saw then future opponents do against Illinois was use their center to guard Ty Rogers, because against Northwestern, it was Matthew Nicholson, Luke Hunger having to go out and space outside of the paint and contest Coleman, which they didn't do all that well. That's not their strength. Coleman knocked down a couple of threes, and that really left the lane pretty open. So will they make a counter there and leave their center on Ty when he's in the game? He only played 14 minutes against Rutgers when Terrence was back in the mix. So those are just little tweaks that you can maybe expect a side to change the way that they approached you the last time versus the previous time, as Northwestern is obviously hoping for a different result.
Yeah, like I said, rare opportunity for us where when you're doing your pregame scouting, you've seen this team with your own eyes before, just the second time this season. And we've also said they've been a good team at points this year. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but overall Northwestern has been improved versus where they were in years past. Between what you've watched with your own eyes or on film, what is it about this year's squad that maybe separates the Wildcats from years past? Because Illinois has had a pretty good streak against them in years past. I believe it's 9 of 11. It's been a lot recently.
10 out of 11.
10 out of 11.
Yeah.
It's been a lot recently against the Cats. But why is this team different this year than years past?
I think when you tie last year and this year together, it's a different version of Boo Buie. It's a guy that earlier in his career was known as a high volume guy that would get up a lot of shots. Sometimes he would force the issue. He just wasn't all that efficient. He'd have a game where he'd be capable. Usually came against Michigan State, where he's gone for high 20s into the 30s. But then others like Illinois, where he really struggled, particularly when he saw Trent Frazier, high doses of him, would maybe put up single digits. So just the consistency that he's been able to build as not only one of the best guards in the Big Ten, but really in the country. You look at points and assists, top 5 in the Big Ten. He's the only guy that's in both those categories right now in conference play. So it starts with him. In terms of beyond that, I think that Brooks Barnheiser has really taken his game to another level, and he's had to. But Chase Audee's gone. Robbie Barron, who was kind of up and down for them last year, but I've been really impressed with watching Barnheiser this year. In Big Ten play, he's averaged 15.5 points per game, around 6 rebounds per game as well. A guy that's really kind of similar to Damask in terms of he likes to play in the mid-post, very good scorer, 15 feet and in. Just a really gritty and hard-nosed player playing with a lot of confidence, coming off a career-high 24 points in their last game against Nebraska. So I think he's in that mix as well. Having some shooting around Bowie. Ty Berry, although he's cooled off a little bit of late, on the whole, shooting his career best percentage from 3. Ryan Langborn, the transfer from Princeton, a guy that in particular in this building has really had the hot hand here in the last 2 months. So just overall, Chris Collins has done a really good job. They've been mostly, including last year, a good defensive team. They've taken a step back this year as far as that goes, but it starts with Bowie, especially in clutch moments, especially on their home floor. That's made him tough. He outdueled Jameer Young, something Illinois couldn't do against Maryland. They blew out Michigan State in this building. Then obviously they beat Purdue, and Bowie was clutch down the stretch in overtime.
Yeah, it is, like we said, roller coaster of a season for Northwestern. You don't know what team you're going to get night in, night out, but they're in the thick of things right now as it stands in the Big Ten standings, as is Illinois. Right now only trailing Purdue and Wisconsin in that table. Like you mentioned, the Badgers just able to stay on the top of the table without winning against Minnesota last night. And of course, Purdue is Purdue. Just 2 losses in the Big Ten season so far for them. If you are the Wildcats and you think about where this team is now versus where these teams were at the beginning of January, this was the restart of Big Ten play for both of these teams after the new year. Do you just burn that tape? 30-point loss, or is there anything they can take from that game that they can do differently this time around against Illinois?
No, I think you definitely try to learn from that in terms of the way that you guarded the booty ball, in terms of the matchups that you want to try to get on Marcus Damask. And sometimes with Marcus, Illinois is screening you into some switches that they want to be able to have. It's very NBA-like as you kind of ISO ball, and obviously we saw Penn State do that to Illinois last year as well. So we'll see if Northwestern will try to refuse some of those switches, try to make sure that they have, like I said, Barnheiser, Martinelli on him and those type of ascents. And then I think you just use it for motivation. be really under your skin about that game, losing by 30 points to anybody, especially your in-state rival, a team that you want to be able to get a big win over here in your home building. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Collins has that up in the locker room running on a loop to try to just get them that fired up about this game. Illinois can't get too full of themselves off of that win and just expect it to be that easy. So I think for Northwestern, you definitely have some learning lessons, but also some motivation you can take from that.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the Your Illini Nation pregame show, so I want to ask you about Illinois as well. Do they go back to that same well, the same reasons that they had won against them earlier this season, or are they going to change things up? I mean, you got Terrence Shannon back this time. Is it going to be a different look game plan this time around?
I think it's a mix of what you were doing pre-Shannon with playing booty ball. Of course, that was in the mix prior to Shannon going out, but having Marcus Damask get in those mid-post matchups, but also to have Shannon going downhill against these smaller guards. I want to set him up and pick and roll, pick and pop, have the ability to make defenders make decisions. If they want to send, you have Coleman come out and set a screen for Shannon, and their center kind of hedges out on him to try to cut off that lane, you throw it back to Coleman, and he can pop that three. So you want to play through Terrence, but also hunt the matchups. Right early in the game, right off the bat against Northwestern the first time, Ty Rogers saw a green light going against Boo Boo. He saw a smaller guard, attacked him, going right to the rim. And I'll give Ty credit. I think the way that Purdue guarded him and some of these other teams with their center could have gotten his mind a little bit. It's actually, he's been pretty aggressive and pretty effective for the most part of late. So if he sees Bowie going to the basket there, I just think another thing is defensively. Now, Illinois did a good job of, Damask actually held his own a lot better than I thought he would against Northwestern, with Bowie trying to drive him and Luke Goody on Ty Berry. Just understanding the importance of that really unlocks everything for Northwestern. If their guards can get by that first guy, it draws attention, so then Bowie can either hit that floater or kick it out for three. If you could prevent them from really getting in the teeth of that defense, the soft spots, that's where they'll start to struggle and bog down offensively. So I think just kind of building on what you did defensively and then finding that balance offensively of, all right, let's scheme for Shannon, but also Shannon's not a bad option off the ball either as a kick-out three or a guy that can cut down the lane to the basket if Marcus is getting doubled.
All right, it should be a very fun environment in here at Welsh Ryan Arena. Already seeing a lot of orange and blue step into the crowd, as well as the Northwestern student section filling in behind us as well. Like we said, sold out tonight, so it should be very loud. And it's not very cheap to get a ticket if you're hoping to do so in the last minute. You said 150?
150 on
150 right now? That's just to get in. That's not even a good ticket either. So
that's not buying Andy and I a beer either.
No, it's not.
What you got to do.
If you end up inside the arena, you see what we're wearing right now. You know what we look like. All right, Derek. Before we get to our predictions, there's some matchups that you're looking for in this one that you think might be able to decide this game.
I think with Bowie drawing Ty Rogers, Terrence Shannon, Justin Harmon, the ability and the luxury for Illinois is to throw a bunch of different guys at him, keep some bodies fresh, allow him to see some different looks. And, of course, having Shannon, who had been establishing himself as one of the best perimeter defenders in the Big Ten, maybe even in the country. I know Brad's talked about him as one of the best, if not the best, two-way player in college basketball. So just his athleticism, the way that he uses his length and ability to cut off driving lanes, that's obviously going to be a huge asset for Illinois, having him back to face Boo tonight. So, like I said, offensively, it really starts with Bowie being able to or not get downhill and break things down. And then Marcus Damask is a real key. And if Northwestern has a better game plan or just an ability to match up better with him in the post, I think that could determine some things. Also, one thing I wonder about with Northwestern, they haven't played like a lick of zone in 2 years, especially in the Big Ten. Would they throw that out there? This is one of those throw the kitchen sink at you type of games, especially if you just don't, from a matchup standpoint, mix and mesh very well with Illinois. We talked about Illinois having some struggles from three. Maybe Northwestern pulls a card that you don't expect in terms of that sense. So a game that they could really use, obviously a big game for Illinois too, because this will be a quad one win on the road. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun, just kind of the dynamic of a rematch and what could be different.
All right, I'm going to give my prediction first. So everyone knows I'm not cheating when Derek and I have very close scores.
We know you read it. We know you read it.
We'll see. We'll find out if I'm close to you. I'm going to go. I don't know what the spread is in this one right now.
3. Illinois by
really?
3.
I'm going to say Illinois wins by more than that, a lot more than that. I'm going to go Illinois wins 84-69. ends up being a 15-point win, because I think Terrence is going to mean too much in this one for the Illini. And I think that the crowd, while they're trying to jeer Terrence and get him off his game, might backfire and might inspire them just a little bit as well. What do you got, Derek?
I think it's going to be a tight game, back and forth, all the way to the wire. I do think Illinois can be a bad matchup for Northwestern. I just think you're going to get Northwestern's best punch tonight in a game that they could really use coming off a loss. They'll be inspired when they see the Illini. And I do think Terrence might wrestle with some emotions tonight as he gets a tough reception for pretty much the duration, although I could see it going the other way too. But I have them winning exactly on the line of 3.
Okay.
76-73.
Wow.
Illinois survives, but it wouldn't shock me if Northwestern knocks off another ranked opponent, but I'm going to decide with the Illini. I do think that matchup and Terrence's return will edge them ultimately.
All right. It should be a very fun one. Like you've been able to see at the bottom of the screen the whole time, this one, 8 p.m. Big Ten Network. It is going on after Iowa, Maryland, I believe.
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Anyways, I hope it's not pushed back is what we're saying. Right now, it should start very close to 8 p.m. on Big Ten Network. Wherever you're watching this right now, tune in postgame for Brad Underwood's full postgame press conference. That's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, WCIA.com. And then, of course, tune in as well at 10 p.m. for full highlights from this one, plus my report here courtside from Welsh Ryan Arena in Evanston. Should be a fun one, Derek. I'm looking forward to this one.
I can't wait. No, it's going to be a juiced environment, sold out, and high stakes for both sides, and the anticipation of not knowing what Terrence is going to get tonight. I'll be interested to finally see it instead of kind of just speculating and wondering. It's going to be interesting.
All right, for Derek, I'm Andy. Thanks for joining us on the Your Illini Nation pregame show. About 55 minutes until tip-off, everyone. Hope you enjoy it, and we will see you after the game.